Welcome back to Auto Turbo Hub. Today we're going back to the mid-60s to explore one of the most revolutionary cars ever made. A car that didn't just look like it came from the future but drove like it too. The 1965 Citroen DS21. The Citroen DS was already a legend when it launched in 1955. But in 1965, the DS21 brought more refinement, more power, and more of that unmatched style that made it one of the most important cars in automotive history. When people first saw the DS, they were stunned. This wasn't just a new model, it was a completely new way of thinking about what a car could be. And by 1965, the DS21 was the ultimate version of that vision. To understand why this car was so special, you have to picture the world in 1965. Most cars on the road were still conservative three-box designs with traditional suspension, basic brakes, and engines that were nothing to brag about. But the Citroen DS looked like it had landed from outer space. Its aerodynamic body, futuristic details, and cutting-edge technology made everything else look old-fashioned overnight. In fact, the DS became such a cultural icon that it was nicknamed the Goddess. Because in French, the letters DS sound like the word DS, which literally means goddess. By the time the DS21 came along, Citroën had spent a decade refining the car, improving its performance, and keeping it ahead of the competition. The DS21 was introduced as the top model, replacing the DS19 with a larger, more powerful engine. This was the car that showed just how advanced Citroën's engineering could be, and it cemented the DS as one of the most remarkable automobiles of the 20th century. The design of the DS was unlike anything else. Even 10 years after its first appearance, the body still looked futuristic in 1965. Sculpted curves, a long tapering roofline, and smooth flowing sides made it one of the most aerodynamic cars of its day. It was low, sleek, and elegant, designed by Italian sculptor and industrial designer Flaminio Bertoni. The DS21 featured subtle updates to keep it fresh, but the overall look was still unmistakably Citroën. Otherworldly yet graceful, daring yet beautiful. The car's proportions and lines were so ahead of their time that even decades later, they don't feel outdated. Inside, the DS21 continued the theme of futuristic innovation. The dashboard was designed around simplicity and modernity. Instead of clutter, you had a clean, almost spaceship-like layout. One of the most unusual features was the single-spoke steering wheel. Citroën believed that having just one spoke improved visibility of the instruments and also made it safer in the event of an accident. The seats were wide, soft, and extremely comfortable, with the kind of cushioning that made long-distance touring a pleasure. The DS wasn't just designed for style. It was designed for comfort, for the driver and passengers alike. But the real magic of the DS wasn't just in how it looked, it was in how it drove. The Citroen DS21 carried forward one of the most groundbreaking innovations in car history, its hydropneumatic suspension system. Instead of traditional springs and shocks, the DS used a self-leveling system powered by hydraulic pressure. What this meant was that the car could glide over bumps and rough roads like nothing else. It delivered a ride so smooth, people compared it to floating on air. At the same time, the system allowed the car to corner with stability, keeping the body flat and composed. You could even adjust the ride height manually, raising it to clear rough terrain or lowering it for highway cruising. This suspension was years ahead of anything competitors had. It gave the DS an almost magical ability to combine comfort and handling, something that luxury brands like Rolls-Royce later licensed for their own cars. For 1965 buyers, the DS21's ride was nothing short of revolutionary. The DS21 was powered by a 2.1-liter inline-4 engine larger than the 1.9-liter unit of the DS19. With this upgrade, the car produced around 109 horsepower, which gave it much better performance, especially on European highways that were growing faster and more demanding in the 60s. While not a sports car by any means, the DS21 was perfectly capable of cruising at high speeds all day long, and the engine worked in harmony with the hydropneumatic system to deliver a driving experience unlike anything else on the road. The transmission was another example of Citroën's out-of-the-box thinking. The DS21 featured a semi-automatic gearbox called the hydraulique. It didn't have a clutch pedal. Instead, hydraulic pressure operated the clutch and gear changes, leaving the driver to simply move the lever. It wasn't a traditional automatic, but it also wasn't a traditional manual. It was a unique middle ground that made the car easier and smoother to drive. Some versions were offered with a fully manual gearbox, and later models would even include a conventional automatic. But the semi-automatic was pure Citroen genius. Braking was equally advanced. The DS was one of the very first cars to come standard with front disc brakes. In 1965, most cars still relied on drum brakes all around, which faded quickly under heavy use. But the DS21 gave drivers superior stopping power and control, further cementing its reputation as a car ahead of its time. Safety was another area where Citroën pushed boundaries. The DS had a strong, reinforced passenger compartment and a design that absorbed impact forces away from occupants. By the late 60s, models even came with swiveling headlights that turned with the steering, improving visibility at night, a feature that luxury cars wouldn't adopt widely until decades later. The DS21 was already pointing the way toward the future of car safety. Beyond its engineering, the DS21 became a cultural icon. This was the car of presidents, artists, and intellectuals. French President Charles de Gaulle famously used a Citroën DS, and during an assassination attempt in 1962, the car's advanced suspension allowed his driver to speed away even with 2 tires shot out, saving his life. That story alone added to the DS' legendary reputation. Owning a DS21 in 1965 meant you weren't just driving another car. You were making a statement about style, sophistication, and forward thinking. The DS also became a design icon worldwide. It was displayed in museums, featured in films, and praised by architects and designers as one of the most beautiful cars ever built. The DS21 was not only admired in France but across Europe and beyond. In America, it was a rare sight, but those who saw one couldn't forget it. It looked unlike anything on the road, futuristic and elegant at the same time. Today, looking back, the 1965 Citroën DS21 stands as one of the most influential cars ever made. Its combination of futuristic design, revolutionary suspension, advanced brakes, and innovative transmission changed the way people thought about cars. It wasn't just transportation. It was a piece of art and technology rolled into one. Collectors and enthusiasts treasure the DS21 today. Restored examples command attention at classic car shows, where crowds gather to admire its unique design and marvel at its technology. Driving one today still feels special. The way the suspension glides over rough roads, the soft yet controlled ride, the unique sound of the engine. It all comes together to remind you why this car was so far ahead of its time. The DS21 also has a legacy that extends beyond just car culture. It represented French innovation and confidence during the post-war era, a time when Europe was rebuilding and reimagining itself. Citroën dared to take risks that other companies avoided, and those risks paid off in a car that continues to be celebrated more than half a century later. When you think of automotive history, certain cars stand out as turning points. The Ford Model T made cars accessible. The Volkswagen Beetle became the people's car. The Mini redefined compact design. And the Citroën DS, especially the DS21 of 1965, redefined what a luxury car could be. It wasn't about chrome or big engines. It was about elegance, comfort, and innovation. It was about the future. So when you see a DS21 today, you're not just looking at a French classic. You're looking at a masterpiece of design and engineering, a car that inspired generations of automakers, and one that still feels extraordinary to this day. The DS21 wasn't built to follow trends, it was built to set them, and in doing so, it became immortal. That is the story of the 1965 Citroën DS21, a car that blended science, art, and vision into something the world had never seen before. A car that, even decades later, reminds us what it means to dream big in the world of automobiles.